Alright, ladies and gentlemen, take two. Welcome back to IDK 101. I just died. My throat exploded in the last video and it was no good. So let's try this again. What we're bringing you today is Hoppier beers, what makes them and how to recommend them. Um, as most of you are aware, this is my favorite page on the menu. This is where I spend a majority of my money. I love my IPAs and my pale ales. So I definitely know what I'm talking about and how to recommend these because this is you would be recommending stuff to me if I were on the other end. So, what makes a hoppier beer? Hoppy, hoppy recipes. We're going to put a lot more hops in there. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to let them boil for longer, let those beta acids give off, and we're going to use hops with more beta acids and more upfront flavors. This is one of the reasons I like IPAs, and one of the reasons IPAs are very difficult to recommend is there are so many different kinds of hops that do so much and will complement different malt bases differently. So, for example, you have the Citra hop, which will give you a very, some people will say grapefruit, some people will say orange, but more than anything, it's not the fruit you're looking for, it's more of the fruit rind. It's this very acidic, definitely citrus flavor, but um, really acidic, more so than your typical just fruit citrus. Um, it is prevalent in single hop beers. Single hop meaning they only use one type of hop. Fresh squeezed from Deschutes, the Sam Adams IPA, and these aren't single hops, but the Deschutes, no, the Deep Ellum IPA and their Dream Crusher both use mostly Citra hops, and these beers are going to be completely different than Simcoe beers. Simcoe is another type of hop, but it gives off a completely different kind of beta acid. This beta acid gives off pine notes instead of um, the citrus notes that we get from Citra hops. Simcoe is in Happy Camper, Pine Drops. There's a little bit of it running around in Odell's IPA and Inversion IPA from Deschutes. It's a very popular hop to include in a hop base, regardless of single hop versus multi hop. It's going to give more pininess to it. Another one that does something similar is Centennial. So now we've got three hops, two of which are doing something similar, one of which is doing something entirely different. There's significantly more very aromatic aroma given off from the alpha hops in the first one. The second one doesn't have as much alpha, and the beta tastes similar to the third one, but the third one has higher alpha contrast and will give more of a piney front end on the nose of it. Centennial hops are used in Centennial IPA from Founders as a single hop, and it is also going to have a lot of pininess to it. Then you've got hops like Mosaic and Cascadian, and they're both great darker hops that work together or can work with a darker roasted malt. What I'm trying to get at is there's a lot going on in these beers that you are just going to have to learn to recognize. Expand your palate, try a little bit out at a time. I'm never afraid to give you samples, but that's where a lot of this is going to come from. And if you just misattribute a flavor, it can completely be the wrong beer to an extent. For the most part, your pale ales and your IPAs, if somebody's looking for one, they are accustomed to most pale ales and IPAs, and so you won't necessarily like piss somebody off for recommending a beer, but you could be more accurate with your beer recommendations if you are able to recognize, oh, well, what do you like? Oh, I like Pine Drops from Deschutes. Oh, is that so? Well, I know that Santa Fe's Happy Camper uses a similar hop base. Let me go grab you a sample of that and see if you like that. A, you sound ridiculously intelligent. B, you sound like you know what you're talking about beyond the fact that you're just an intelligent person. And C, you've just came back with hopefully a crowd pleaser that's going to win them over, and now you've made his experience that much better, and you will see that on your tip, hopefully. Um, so this section will take the most work to get to know, though. It can be the most rewarding because some of your biggest beer snobs are going to tip you the best for your beer knowledge, and some of your biggest beer snobs are going to be your IPA drinkers. Sorry, guys. Um, so let's go ahead and start talking about some recommendations. Safe recommendations are going to be Odell's IPA, Deep Ellum's IPA, and then if they're looking, ask specifically, are you looking for a session IPA? If they're looking for a session IPA, what they're looking for is an IPA that's lower in alcohol and slightly lower in hops, so that you can drink it for a longer period of time, longer session. That's where the term session comes from. If they are looking for that, Founders All Day IPA is probably the best on the market. Those are going to be your three safest choices. If you want to start getting more involved, that's for more hoppy beers. If they're looking for an IPA or a pale ale, but they're like, I really do want to tone down on the hops, then you want to try and give them like a chain breaker, a power and light from Independence, something that has a hop base that's notable, but that doesn't completely overwhelm the flavor. Any of your IPAs that are typically, or any of your IPAs or pale ales that are below 6% are going to be safe bets on this, for that category. For your typical IPA, I want an IPA drinker, your first section's probably a little better. If you want to really refine how you want to suggest stuff, I'm gonna go ahead and break it down into three categories. We're going to have our citrus hop, we're going to have our piney hop, and then we're going to have our roasty sort of hop. So for our first one, for our Citra, the big ones are going to be Dream Crusher and Fresh Squeezed. Those have the most brilliant upfront Citra hops. I feel like Dream Crusher is slightly overrated. I feel like Fresh Squeezed is about where it should be as far as ratings go, but they're very, very well-rounded beers. If we want to move over to more of the piney hops, Deschutes Pine Drops, and what was the other one I mentioned earlier? Santa Fe Happy Camper. I apologize, guys. Santa Fe Happy Camper are going to be two of the bigger ones there. Sierra Nevada is not a bad choice. It's a cheap one that you can get that has a Cascadian hop that's going to sit somewhere between, I want to be a little piney, but I think I've got a decent little malt base and I want to be roasty. It's going to sit in between the two of them and be really middle ground. Lower alcohol, cheaper beer. Not too bad. The last one we're going to look at is more of the roasty hops. The first one I'm going to send you on is whatever black IPA we have. Those will almost always use some form of Cascadian hop. So Wookie Jack, Mountain Standard. I believe we're out of Mountain Standard. Santa Fe Black IPA. I'm pretty sure we still have that. All going to be great choices. The other thing you're going to be able to go with is your more English style. Anything that's advertised as an English style. The reason is English style. The reason they got more alcohol in the beer and they started adding more hops is they had to have a huge malt base to get the extra alcohol. So they have more of a malt base and they use this nice roastier style hop on the back end of it. 10 and 6 from Rabbit Hole is going to be the obvious choice on this one. Bass is going to be I wouldn't recommend it per se. It's a lighter foreign beer, lighter English style pale ale. I would definitely go with 10 and 6 before I would do that. 10 and 6 has a very unique flavor though. So again, if we wanted to expand our horizons a little bit past safe picks, our safe picks being Odell IPA, Deep Ellum IPA, and Founders All Day. For pale ales, we're going to go more along the Mirror Pond, any of your sub 6% IPAs. Then once we branch out past our safe picks, we've got Citra hops, which we're going to do something like Deep Ellum Dream Crusher or Fresh Squeezed, or we're going to move over to Pininess and we're going to get them something like Santa Fe Happy Camper or Deschutes Pine Drops. The last one being more roasty, anything that has an obvious roasted or heavy malt base to it. Black IPAs and English Pale Ales. 10 and 6, Wookie Jack, Santa Fe Black IPA. So those are our recommendations, and that is what gives us our flavor. Again, our flavor comes from an added hop that's boiled longer, and a lot of times we want to balance our beer, so we add a bigger malt base, which is what allows more sugars to get into our beer to have the higher alcohol flavor, or the higher alcohol amount, the higher alcohol per by volume. So that's the flavor in a nutshell. That's as many recommendations as I can get to y'all without boring you too terribly much. So until next time, we'll see you again.